We are into the closing weeks of the college football season, and Tuesday we'll get a new edition of the College Football Playoff Rankings. But Jerry Palm is not making you wait. His latest CFP projections are up for your reading pleasure over on CBSSports.com. Here they are in graphic format for you. Jerry has Georgia and Tennessee clashing in an all-SEC semifinal in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. The other game is the Fiesta Bowl in Glendale. It has Ohio State taking on TCU. All right, so let's bring in Jerry to discuss these two projections. Jerry, walk us through the thinking here behind an all-SEC semifinal versus the two teams being split and possibly meeting in the title game.
Well, Tennessee, the committee is not there to create playoff matchups. They're there to rank teams. And so however they rank the teams, 1 through 4, then the matchups are drawn from that. So they don't look at, well, how do we want to position these teams so that we get the most enticing semifinals? For Tennessee, though, 11-1 is the best they can do. They've got some impressive wins. They don't really have a bad loss, but obviously you lose to Georgia. That's the best loss you can have. But they could be threatened by 12-1 conference champions from other places. So it's not a done deal for Tennessee, but I think the strength of their wins and the strength of their schedule will give them a leg up over an ACC champion or possibly now USC, the last team left with one loss in the Pac-12.
Outside of Oregon losing to Washington over the weekend, I mean, there weren't that many surprises this week among the ranked teams. We get the third rankings released tomorrow. What are you expecting to see?
Well, you're right. I mean, there isn't really a lot of chaos besides Oregon losing and dropping out. And then I believe LSU will simply move up into that 6th spot. But there was another upset in the Pac-12, and that was UCLA getting beat. So now you're going to have in the middle of the rankings, instead of perhaps a little bit higher, a pile of Pac-12 teams. 4 have 2 overall losses, and each one of them has got a loss that's kind of regrettable, and each one of them has got a pretty good win. So the committee will probably spend more time talking about Pac-12 teams in the middle of the rankings than they do anything else this week.
Jerry, do you think that there's a scenario where a one-loss Michigan or a one-loss Ohio State would be ahead of a one-loss Tennessee?
No, I don't think so, because the strength of schedule is a big problem in the Big Ten, and in particular for Michigan because their non-conference schedule was also terrible. But after you get past Ohio State, Michigan, and Penn State, there is an enormous drop-off to the rest of the Big Ten. Illinois has been in the rankings the last couple of weeks, but then now they've lost 2 in a row. They're going to Michigan this week. I don't know if you're going to see another Big Ten team in the rankings the rest of this season, and that's why 11-1 from the Big Ten is not going to be good enough to put someone in the playoff, barring some sort of chaotic situation.
Right. Jerry, who are the other teams that are on the outside looking in that are in the best position for a CFP berth at this point?
Well, any team that's got no losses or 1 loss from a major conference still has a chance. And the only team outside of that group is LSU, which is going to play for the SEC championship. And if they beat Georgia, and they're the only team to do so, and they finish 11-2, they're going to be in the college football playoff. But nobody else with more than 1 loss or outside of a major conference has got any path to the playoff that seems reasonable. So, USC from the Pac-12, Clemson and North Carolina from the ACC, there is still a way for them to get there. They may need a little bit of help, but it's not unheard of for a 12-1 team to get into the college football playoff. So, but if you're outside of that, like Alabama is probably going to be 7th in the rankings this week, no shot for the playoff.
Yeah, Alabama fighting for a New Year's Six Bowl at this point. You talk about some of those teams on the outside. I want to hit on Clemson. I mean, they rebounded nicely after their loss last week. They booked their place in the ACC title game where they'll face North Carolina. Jerry, is there a path to the CFP for an ACC title winner?
Well, for each of those teams, there's a path. And the most important part of that path starts with winning all of your games before you face each other, so that Clemson and North Carolina enter that game 11-1, and you have the strongest opponent you can possibly have to boost the value of your team when you win that game. Either team, same thing. So even though they're separated in the rankings, they're actually really in the same spot because 12-1 North Carolina and 12-1 Clemson are basically the same. But it's really important for the other team to be 11-1 entering that game to maximize the value of that win. And then there's a chance, it just depends on what some of these other teams do.
Yeah, we could have some chaos, but we may not. And if that's the case, then things are probably going to stay pretty much status quo. It's just going to be the order of things moving forward. Jerry, there is a G5 bid up for grabs in the Cotton Bowl. Who do your projections have getting it?
Right now, UCF, who has beaten Cincinnati at home earlier, and then this week won at Tulane. So they've got a leg up on the American Conference Championship. Tulane and Cincinnati will play each other next week, likely to determine the opponent for UCF, and then that game will be played at UCF. So really, if the Knights here, Golden Knights, can take care of their own business, then they've got a really good chance to be the representative for the group of 5. Outside the American Conference, unless there's some chaos there, Boise State has got 3 losses. If they could win the Mountain West, there'd be a shot. Coastal Carolina is sitting there with 1 loss. They'd have a shot, although their schedule's not very good. So those would be the other teams in contention. But right now, it looks like the American Conference champion.
College football writer Jerry Palm joining us here on CBS Sports HQ to discuss his latest bowl projections, which are up over on CBSSports.com. Great to see you, Jerry. In terms of other notable bowl games, in terms of the bowl projections, Penn State gets into the Citrus Bowl versus Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss. Florida taking on Purdue in the ReliaQuest Bowl in Tampa. Notre Dame, Mississippi State in the Gator Bowl in Jacksonville, and the Alamo Bowl in San Antonio, Texas. Oklahoma State versus Oregon. Again, these are notable bowl projections from Jerry Palm. His article over on CBSSports.com.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.